Ever wondered how to explain your family tree to your extended family in English? Well, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving into an essential part of daily English conversation, family discussions. We all know communication is key, especially when it comes to family. It's how we share our lives, experiences, and of course, our complex family connections. Now, have you ever heard about a family tree? It's a visual representation of family relationships that spans generations. Understanding and explaining your family tree can be a bit tricky, especially when you're doing it in a second language. But don't worry, we're here to make it super simple for you. We'll walk you through the steps, provide examples, and even throw in some question and answer sessions. So stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you will be able to confidently give information about your family to your extended family in English. Scene script. Understanding who is who in your family is the first step. Now let's dive into the exciting world of family vocabulary. We'll start with the basics. Mother, father, sister, brother. These are your immediate family members. You might say, "This is my mother, her name is Mary." Here, my is a possessive pronoun. It shows that Mary is your mother. Next, we have the grandparents, grandmother and grandfather. If you're talking about your father's mother, you'd say, "This is my paternal grandmother, her name is Jane." Again, my indicates Jane is your grandmother, and paternal tells us she's on your father's side. What about aunts, uncles, and cousins? An aunt is your parent's sister, and an uncle is your parent's brother. Cousins are a bit more complicated. They're the children of your aunts and uncles. You might introduce them like this. "This is my Aunt Lisa and this is my cousin Jack, Lisa's son." Now let's focus on sentence breakdown. When introducing family members, we often use the pattern, "This is my family member, their name is name." This structure is simple yet effective for clear introductions. Notice how we use possessive pronouns like my, her, and their to show relationships. My indicates that the person is a member of your family. Her and their are used to refer back to a person already mentioned. So when you say, "This is my cousin Jack, Lisa's son," Lisa's is a possessive adjective referring back to Aunt Lisa. Introducing people in English is about more than just naming them. It's about showing relationships, using the right pronouns, and making connections. So don't just say, "This is Bob," say, "This is my brother Bob, he's a fantastic cook." Add some personality, make it interesting. But don't worry if it feels a bit overwhelming at first. Like most things, it's all about practice. And the great thing about family is, they're always around for you to practice with. So go ahead, introduce your brother, your grandmother, your cousin. You'll get the hang of it in no time. Remember, practice makes perfect. Try introducing your family members in English. Now that we know how to identify family members, let's talk about how to describe familial relationships. Understanding family relationships in English can be quite straightforward once you've got the basics down. Let's consider an example. John is my brother. He is also the son of my parents. In this statement, we're describing two relationships. First, John's relationship to me, which is that of a brother. Second, John's relationship to my parents, which is that of a son. Now let's break down each sentence for better understanding. In the first sentence, John is my brother, we're using a possessive pronoun, my. Possessive pronouns are used to show ownership or relationships. In this case, it's showing that John is related to the speaker as a brother. In the second sentence, he is also the son of my parents, we're again using the possessive pronoun my to show that the parents we're referring to are the speaker's parents. The word also is used to indicate that John has another relationship within the family. That is, he is not just the speaker's brother, but also the son of the speaker's parents. Let's try another example. Sarah is my mother's sister. That makes her my aunt. Here we're first establishing Sarah's relationship to my mother, and then explaining what that relationship means to me. The phrase, "that makes her my aunt," is a common way to explain how one relationship translates into another. Remember, the key to describing family relationships is understanding the use of possessive pronouns like my, your, his, her, its, our, and their, and relationship terms like brother, sister, mother, father, son, daughter, aunt, uncle, and so on. So don't shy away from practicing these sentences. The more you practice, the easier it will be to describe your family tree in English. Isn't it fascinating how we can describe our family relationships in English? Scene script. Family history is important. Let's learn how to talk about it. When we discuss our family history, we often talk about our ancestors, where they came from and what they did. For instance, you might say, "My grandparents immigrated from Italy in the early 1900s. Let's break this sentence down. My grandparents refers to the parents of your parents. The term immigrated comes from the word immigration. which means moving to a new country to live permanently. From Italy indicates the country they moved from, and in the early 1900s tells us the time they moved. You can replace Italy with any country and the early 1900s with any time period. For example, you could say, my grandparents immigrated from China in the late 1950s. Another way to discuss family history might be to talk about your family's occupations. You could say, my great-grandfather was a farmer and his farm has been in our family for 4 generations. Here, my great-grandfather refers to your grandparents' father. Was a farmer tells us his occupation, and his farm has been in our family for 4 generations, tells us about a piece of property that has been passed down through your family. You might also discuss family traditions or stories. For example, every Christmas we make a traditional German dish that my great-great-grandmother used to cook. In this sentence, every Christmas tells us when the tradition happens, we make a traditional German dish. Tells us what the tradition is, and my great-great-grandmother used to cook, tells us where the tradition came from. Remember, when discussing family history, we often use the past tense, as we're talking about events that have already happened. And it's okay to use words related to immigration, occupations, and traditions. After all, these are all parts of our family history. Family history is a treasure. Feel proud to share it in English. Family conversations are not just about giving information, they also involve asking and answering questions. This interaction can strengthen bonds, enhance understanding, and provide a rich ground for practicing English. Let's dive into some common questions and answers you might encounter during family conversations. Picture this. You're at a family gathering and your aunt asks, "How is your brother doing?" A simple and polite response might be, "He's doing well, thank you." This question is a perfect example of an inquiry about someone's well-being. It's polite, shows concern, and invites an open-ended response. Another common question might be, "What does your sister do for a living?" In response, you could say, "She's a software engineer." This type of question seeks specific information. The answer is usually straightforward, providing clear and concise information. Now let's try a question that digs a bit deeper into family life. Where did your grandparents grow up? This asks for historical information about your family. A possible answer could be, they grew up in a small town in the Midwest. The answer provides a glimpse into your family's past, adding depth to the conversation. Moving on to a more complex question, why did your cousin decide to study art? This question probes into the reasons behind a family member's decision. A thoughtful answer might be, she has always been passionate about painting and wanted to pursue her dream. This response reveals a bit of your cousin's character and aspirations. Finally, let's look at a question that invites sharing of future plans. When is your dad retiring? An appropriate response could be, he plans to retire in 5 years. This question and answer exchange not only shares information, but also opens the door for further conversation about your dad's post-retirement plans. Remember, the goal is not just to ask and answer questions, but to engage in meaningful exchanges that make family conversations enjoyable and informative. As you practice these question forms and responses, you'll find your English skills improving. Engaging in English conversations with your family can be both fun and educational. Scene script. Are you ready to talk about your family in English? We've covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from identifying different family members to describing those intricate family relationships, and even delving into family history. We've also given you some handy phrases for engaging in family conversations. By now, you should be well equipped with the right words and sentences to confidently talk about your family in English. Remember, practice makes perfect. So don't shy away from using these sentences in your daily conversations. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel to discuss your family and extended family in English. Whether you're introducing your siblings to a friend or sharing your family's story with a colleague, these phrases will come in handy. So keep practicing and keep improving. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more English learning videos. And feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or suggestions. Remember, practice is the key. Keep practicing.